So it will be available for you to listen to at a later date if you're wanting to catch up on some tidbits. And I think Betsy's going to let us share her PowerPoint presentation with you as well. Is that correct, Betsy?
Yeah, yep, we can do that.
Awesome. Well, take over, Betsy. It's all yours. Oh, we'll be answering questions along the way in the chat window down there. So anyhow, if you've got some question you want to ask, just type it in the chat window and Betsy will answer it. And we'll also be open for questions at the end. I do have everyone muted, so you'll need to do the chat thing. All right, carry on, Betsy. Talk to us.
All right. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We are going to get into living big in 2018. This is about creating an annual blueprint with me, with Betsy Pake. Now, this quote I love, and I wanted to start with this. It's Muhammad Ali, right? Who doesn't love Muhammad Ali? But the quote is, "The fight is won or lost far away from witnesses, behind the lines, in the gym, and out there on the road, long before I dance under those lights." I love this because so many times we see people that are winning, right? We see people that have accomplished a bunch. They're where we want to be in our business. But what we need to remember and what we need to recognize is that it's the hard work done out on the road, which is this right here, which is being here. So I commend you for even being here, for taking this step to maybe see setting up your goals differently for 2018. Now, who am I? I'm Betsy Pake. I help ordinary people become superheroes and live to their full potential. I'm an author. I used to own a CrossFit gym, and I have been a competitive weightlifter. And back in those days, I wrote a book called Become a Nutrition Ninja. Last year, I wrote a book called Start Small, Live Big. And I'm a mom and a wife, and my daughter is now taller than me, but that picture is a good picture, so we'll use it. And I also have a podcast called The Art of Living Big. Now, I'm a certified happiness coach, which my husband says sounds fake, but that is a real thing. And as Dan was saying, I also am an NLP trained coach. And NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It's really how our brains and our language corresponds with the world around us. And if we can change the way we're processing things, we can actually change our reality. I love NLP. I have seen so many incredible uses in it, not just, like Dan was saying, helping people stop smoking, but really helping people change the way they see things that are happening in their lives. And everybody, no matter how great their life is, has something that's happening that is, that they'd like to change or they'd like to adjust. Now, I just wanted to quickly invite you to find me on Facebook. I mean, you can find my business page, but connect with me personally. It's Betsy J is the personal one. But that's just a way where I can help you, or you can ask questions. Sometimes we're like sponges, and we'll get information, and then it'll be a couple days later, and you think, I wonder. So you can just shoot me a message right through Facebook. All right. So here's what to expect today. We're going to talk a little bit about creating a clear vision. We're going to understand your goal, and your goal may be different at the end of this than it is at the beginning. We're going to create a long-term plan, and by the time you're done, you're going to have what you need to be able to map out a 2018 blueprint. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some more ways to connect, and I've got some fun stuff to share. All right, this picture makes me sick just to look at it. So you look at it. I'm just going to tell you that the most dangerous phrase that I've ever heard is, I already know this. So there may be some things that I say or that I touch on that you may have already heard. I'm going to just ask that you stay open. I might say it in a different way than you'd heard it before, and you may be in a different place than you've ever been before. And so it may trigger something that brings out an aha moment for you. So don't shut that down by going, ugh, I've already heard this. We're going to start out really macro here, and just know that by the time we get to the end of the presentation, we're going to be bringing it back into focus into what to do today. But the process that I'm going to walk you through is super important so you can get to today. So this is the old way. This is how most people set goals. And even now, I see people do this, every year, especially resolution time, right? So they've got a goal. And then they do the SMART thing. You've heard of that, which is the specific, measurable, attainable, that whole thing, right? And then they run really fast. So they are like changing everything. They're changing 50 different things the January 2nd, right? They get started. They run like so fast, and then they get burned out. So most people totally give up on their resolutions or their goals or their challenges for the year by January 20th. And then they're left feeling super disappointed. And then they do this whole thing come like October, November, like next year is going to be different, right? Next year's my year. I know this is 2018 is going to be it for me, right? But this whole cycle goes all over again because we think, well, it must be this year wasn't my year because it's supposed to be next year. But I think that's a flawed system. And so I want to just talk a little bit about that and about a different way to do it. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, I really need more willpower, right? Especially like weight loss seems to be a goal a lot of people have, but I really need more willpower. And I want to throw out the idea. I want to open your mind up to the fact that perhaps you have unlimited willpower. So moms or dads, and even if you're not a mom or a dad, you can still understand what I'm about to say. But if you're sitting on the front steps and your kid is playing and they run out into the street and they're about to be hit, I bet you could start running faster than you have ever run in your life, right? That's willpower. So what you lack day to day isn't willpower, it's desire. So the question really should be, how do we increase our desire? Now, why we slip back is because we're not really tapping into our deepest desires, right? So we slip back into the old way. We do that whole process that I talked about, how we set goals the old way, but we're not tapping into what really, really fuels us. And when our goal doesn't do this, then we end up slipping back into what's comfortable. Now, this is me and my mom, and I'm going to ask you, are you putting things off? When I was young, my mom was one of those moms that was like involved in everything. She was like the homeroom mom. She went on all the field trips. And by the time I started high school, she was the mom that everybody loved, right? She was the mom that brought us to all the concerts and did all that fun stuff. And I remember being maybe 9 or 10 years old. And I heard her say, I really want to go see the pyramids. And I would hear her say things like that from time to time, but I remember that specifically. I really want to see the pyramids in Egypt. And being 9 or 10, I remember I asked her, when are you going? And she said to me, well, Daddy and I talked about it, and right now I'm going to be a mommy. And so she didn't do it. Now, about a week after this picture was taken, I was 16 and my mom was 41. She was in a car accident and she died. She never got to see that pyramid. Now, there is value in being a mommy. I'm a mommy and I see the value in that. But what I'm going to ask of you is there a way that you could bring more of some of your deepest desires into your life now? Are you putting things off because other things seem really important at the time? But could you create more balance? Is there a way that you could have more fulfillment? So this year, I want you to think about things differently. I'd like to ask you to clarify your vision with 3 questions. Now, this is where I need you to pull out your paper and your pencils. This is a really great thing to do on paper, like to actually physically use your hand to write this out. We're going to go over 3 different questions. I'm going to time it. And the reason I'm going to time it is because that's going to kind of shut off your right brain so that you can actually be creative and think through this and come up with ideas that are going to answer these questions, okay? So I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to show you the question, start the timer, and I'm going to talk while you're writing because I just want to be giving you ideas and to be sort of fueling that, okay? Now, when you can understand these questions, and if you work with a team or even with your family, these are questions that's going to help you understand your soul. And when you can know the answers to these questions for your family, for your team, you can do your work in a totally different way. All right, the first question, and I'm going to start the timer. It's, what do I want to experience? Not just this year, but in this lifetime. What are things that I'd like to experience? Think about travel. What would you like to see? Is there someplace you've always wanted to go? Who would you go with? Who would you have these major experiences with? What about your health or your fitness? Is there something that you've always wanted to accomplish? Is there a vision that you've had off and on in your head about how you could look or how you could feel? What sort of friends would you like to have? Would you like to experience certain things with a new group of people? What do those friends do? What do you do together? I don't want you to worry about money as you're going through this exercise. I want you to be open that anything is possible. And maybe it's some things. Maybe it's a certain home. Maybe it's a vacation home. Maybe it's about the experiences you could have at those homes with your family, with your friends. Think about holidays. What do you do on holidays? Do you have certain routines or rituals or traditions that you do? Who do you spend time with? Do you travel for those? Are they always at home? What does your home look like when you're doing that? All right, in just about 5 more seconds. All right. And now we're going to go to the second question. How do I want to grow? And the timer's going. And so how would I like to grow? What would I like to change? How would I like to be more? Are there languages you'd like to learn? Are there certain intellectual skills you'd like to have? Would you like to be able to have deep discussions with people about concepts and ideas that maybe you haven't yet? Are there certain character traits you'd like to grow? Maybe you'd like to be more of a leader. Maybe you'd like to be more of a motivator. What about honesty, confidence? Is there a way you'd like to grow in terms of your health and fitness? Do you need to work on a certain area and build that area up? What about your spiritual life? Would you like to learn more about meditation or prayer? Do you like to journal? How could you deal better with stress? Could you grow into the kind of person who better understands grief? Where would you like to change and become different? What about your business? Is there something specific that if you grew into that, you could become more? It would make your job easier. You'd be able to impact more people. What would that look like for your life? 5 more seconds. All right. And our next question, what do I want to contribute in this world? 90 seconds and the clock has started. How do you like to contribute? Tony Robbins says that we must contribute to our lives, we must contribute to other people, and we must grow. And those are our 2 great spiritual needs. How could we contribute to our friends, to our family? What could we do different in our workplace, in our city? What about our society or the whole world? Would you like to start volunteering? Do you have a spot in your heart for kids or for the elderly? Do you have an interest in art or writing? How could you shift the world? What could your legacy be? How could you contribute back to the planet? Is there an idea you've always had to make the world a better place? Is there something in your company or through your work? How could you give back? What do you get in? And is it something that you could learn and grow and then share with others? What is it about your business that helps you to be able to contribute and build other people's lives? How can you change people? How can you shift how they think? We got about 5 more seconds. Okay. All right. Deep breath. How was that? How did that feel? All right. So now we are going to go on and we're going to start creating that big life. You have lots of ideas now, and it's maybe things that you've never ever thought of before, or never given yourself a chance to actually spend a minute to think about, to spend that moment where you actually write it down, acknowledge it. There's a problem with how we've done goals in the past, and many times we get really focused on just one area. And when we do that, like if we just get super focused on our career or super focused on our health and fitness, our brains actually shut down looking for progress in the other areas. And that's one of the reasons why annual goals are not super helpful. They can actually be demotivating, like they get too big, right? So you may have this idea, and I'm going to use weight loss just because that is one that people use a lot, but I'm going to use a business one here too. But people are like, I want to lose 50 pounds, or I want to build $1 million business. Well, that may be your goal, and that's a great goal to have. But what can happen is when we aren't making progress, or when we struggle, or when we have a setback, then all of a sudden we've got a 12-month cap and it demotivates us. And also it doesn't give us room to leap. If I'm going to hit a big monster goal, like I want to build $1 million business, I want to lose 50 pounds, I'm going to have to try some new things. If it's not where I am right now, I'm going to have to learn something new. I'm going to have to change and grow and become. And is 12 months really enough time to do that? So we're going to get started now on those 3 lists that you have. And what we're going to do is you're going to pick one from each list. Now, I understand some of this may be, you may not have time to really go through and do this while we're on the webinar today. So, you know, this will be recorded, come back to it. But what I want you to do is I want you to pick maybe just one of those things right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a mission statement. There's a specific way to do this. It's not smart. It is actually a specific way that can actually empower you and motivate you every single time you see it. So you use a statement to actually remind yourself. So maybe it's something you put on your phone as the background, or the background of your wallpaper on your computer, or maybe it's on a Post-it note and you tape it right to the mirror, so when you brush your teeth every day you see it. So instead of I'm losing 10 pounds, the mission statement is every day I'm creating a healthy world for myself and for my family. Or I love and maybe it's not building $1 million business, it's I love connecting with more customers and having their satisfaction lead me to be able to help more people. So create a mission statement for one of your items. Just pick one from each list that is the thing that you want to really focus on. And then you're going to take each one and you're going to create a mission statement. All right. Now we're going to take a look at one of those items. Again, so you've got 3 lists. I want you to pick one thing from each list, and I want you to take one of them right now. You've created a mission statement, and now we're going to chunk that down. We're going to look at that as a 3-year goal. So when I look at it as 3 years, instead of going like I'm creating an annual resolution, I'm opening myself up. I'm understanding that I can take risks, because if I fail, I have room to pick myself up. And I can chunk it down in a different way. So let's go back to the example of I want to build $1 million business. Now, I don't need to be at $333,000 the first year. I probably need to build like a $100,000 business that first year, because the compound effect is going to help me bridge that and build that each year. So take one of those goals that you have, something you want to accomplish in your life, one of those deepest desires, look at it as a 3-year goal, and then where would you need to be at the end of this year? To reach that goal, what would need to happen at the end of this year? Now, motivation, it's born and it dies. It begins with action. Sometimes people are like, I got to get motivated, Betsy. And I'll say, just get started. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But what happens is when people don't have any sort of system, they sort of get lost in the action, right? So they hit a stumbling block or something happens and all their motivation just goes right down the toilet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that annual goal. So now you've got the 3-year goal. You've broken it down to where you need to be at the end of 1 year. And now you're going to break it down for 12 months. At the end of each month, what kind of guidepost would I need to hit in order to be where I need to be at the end of 1 year? So my goal is 3 years. I've chunked it down to 1, and now I'm breaking it down monthly. So breaking it down every month. Failure. So here's one thing I always tell my clients when I'm working with them is you're going to fail. So when you fail, when something goes wrong, when something doesn't go as planned, I call failure contrast. So what I say is, oh, I've got some contrast. Good. This is helping me identify what I really do want so I can get clarity. I have talked for years about moving to the beach. And my husband and I have this idea I want to move to the beach. And if things happened as the moment I said I wanted them, I would be, I'd be at the beach. But what I realized when we started going and visiting certain beaches was that there were certain beaches I didn't really like. So some people would say, oh, well, that was a fail. Like you went there to see if you'd want to live there. Failure. No, it was contrast. It was amazing because every time I went someplace I didn't like, it actually helped me clarify the things I would be looking for. So we're going to change the way we're talking about failure. Now, this is a system that I developed with my clients. I call it Chase. And I'm going to walk through this system with you. And it's going to help us to break down those months. So we got the 3 year, we got the 1 year, we chunked it down for 12 months. And now we need to actually get busy. What do I actually need to be doing? And so our first step is creating. And that's really what we've been doing here, right? Is to start to create. So our brains really, really like it when we get macro, or when we get micro, when we break it down to the month. So when I got you to the 3 years, it probably made you feel a little uncomfortable, right? Because you're like, this feels so wishy-washy. But when you can get to this point, if you can really walk through this and get to this point, what you're doing every day will become much more intentional. So as we break down what you're going to need for each month, what would need to happen? Who would I need to meet? What would I need to do? So take a piece of paper and we're going to work on just 1 month. What would you need to accomplish the very first month? Would you need to create and just start writing as I'm talking? But who would you need to meet? Would you need to identify some new partners? Would you need to have a luncheon where you're getting people together and brainstorming? What sort of things would you need to do? What could be some action steps? I always tell my clients not to limit this to things you'd actually do. Write down anything, because just because you write it down doesn't mean you have to do it. So write down anything. Write down, I would hire a full-time assistant. Don't let in the back of your brain go, I can't afford a full-time assistant. I want you to just brainstorm, because maybe that's something that won't happen right now, but when you start to conceptualize it, it may be something that comes your way in 6 months, in 9 months. So what would I need to do right now? All those little things. A 90-second calendar or countdown is really great for this too when you do it on your own. What would need to happen? What are all those little tiny steps that I would need to do? And now the next part, that's the create phase. The next part is help. So I like to look at all of those little things that I've come up with and circle all the places I could get help. Where could I delegate? Right? So again, take the money part out of it if you're thinking that. I want you to just be open to, these are things I wouldn't necessarily have to do. So I was working with a woman who was really working on getting a better relationship with her husband. One of the things we identified as we did this process was that she always did the housework. They both worked full time, but she always did the housework. And so it just got under her skin, right? So it just bothered her. So one of the ways she could get help was for a couple months while she was working on this and making this a focus, she got a housekeeper, right? So somebody to come twice a month and help. So just go through and circle all the places you could get help. The next thing is attain. So many times when we are trying to reach a bigger goal, we don't spend a minute to realize that the bigger goal, the person who accomplishes that bigger goal is different than you. If it was you, you'd already have that goal. And so what new things do you need to attain? What new knowledge, what systems or tools, what do you need? So highlight those, underline those, just mark those so that you can, that they stand out to you and you see them. So you've got a big list now of a lot of little things you could do. You have some things you could delegate out, and maybe now you also have some ideas of things that you need to attain to be able to move forward and to really hit that goal. And then the next thing is to start. And this sounds so silly, but I tell people many times people will make a big list, right? Are you a list maker where you make a list of all the things you have to do? And then at the end of the day, you move the things you didn't do to the next day's list, right? Am I right? But if you can actually take these things, this list, and put them in your calendar, because we do things that are scheduled. So if at 11 o'clock or at noon, I knew I was coming on this webinar, I made it happen. So at 11 o'clock, I had a Photoshop, like a thing I needed to do for my podcast. And I put it in my calendar at 11 o'clock, that's what I'm going to do. So when 11 o'clock came, that's what I did. If it was just on a list where I had to cross things off, it's something I could put off till next week. And so I probably would have. So the start phase is huge because I want you to actually put things in your calendar. And think about where you could create a system. This is the difference between people that are able to do more and the people that get stuck. If you can start to see a system. So as you're noticing the things that you could delegate, when you're noticing the things you do every day, is there a system that you could put in place for a weekly action, a daily action? How could you change and grow to create a better system in your business? The last step is to evaluate. So I have a friend who's an airline pilot, and we were talking one day, and he was saying, all of the planes are run by computers now. And he was saying when he first started, how he had to actually fly the plane just by looking at the controls, right, when he first got his pilot's license. But he was saying, if I flew from LA to Atlanta and my nose was off by just 1%, I would end up in South Carolina. I wouldn't even end up in Atlanta. So I have to have the computer running, or I have to constantly be adjusting. So think about when you ride a bike, you're constantly bringing it back to center, right? You're going to the right a little, to the left a little, constantly bringing it back to center. If you wait until you get close to Atlanta to evaluate and check the controls, you may be really far off track. But if you can evaluate every Sunday night, I tell my clients, do it every Sunday night. It doesn't have to take long. Look at your calendar for the week. Set up your start items. Look and see what you can delegate. I also always ask my husband and my daughter, what can I do this week for you? Because that's one of my priorities, right? So what can I do to make your life easier this week? Sometimes it's something so small. My daughter said to me once is, when you pick me up from school, can you not be on the phone? Right? I mean, who would have thought, right? So it seems obvious now that I say it, but if I had not asked her, she might not have ever told me that. And I would have been on the phone for the next 3 weeks making her feel ignored. And so having this time where you evaluate can be huge, so that you're not just filling your day with noise, so that you're being really intentional. And I want you to remember that as you're going through this process, what I want you to keep bringing up is, who do I need to become? How do I need to change? Because our thoughts, we have I think it's 90,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those, it's 60,000. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are repeats. And so if you're thinking the same thoughts every single day, over and over and over again, you are going to be the same person every year, over and over and over again. So who do I need to become? How do I need to change? And so what's next, right? So complete this blueprint. Really spend some time. This may take you a couple hours to really dig deep and really map out where you're going to be in 3 years, what's your 1 year cutoff, and how do you chunk that down into 12 months. Remember, the 12 months is designed so that you can fail, so that you can take risks, so you can leap. Because when you fail, you have time. You have time to make it up. You're not on a 12-month crunch. You're on a 3-year crunch. This is kind of extending it out, and then you're pushing yourself each week in between evaluations. So one of the things that I work with people is actually honing in on a specific goal, and I want to talk about that. I have something called the 60 days of transformation. Now, I want to offer this to you guys. You can watch this. You can do this whole system and have amazing success. You don't need the 60-day transformation, but I believe that when you spend time and you focus in and you say, I'm putting my energy here and I'm going to get this done, having 60 days, especially at the beginning of the year, can really help you to stay focused and to stay grounded on that. So I have a program that is video lessons, and the way I'm doing it for 2018 is I'm pushing people through this process that you've just gone through, and then I'm having an hour-long session with you. So in December or beginning of January, an hour-long session to really help you hone in, to see where you may have some pitfalls, to see what little small things we could change that would have a huge impact on what you're doing. And then come January, you'll be put into weekly video lessons for 8 weeks. And then once a month, we're going to have a group training call. So it's an awesome program. It's really fun. And that high impact strategy session, we'll do that in December. And then I also do something called a VIP day. Now, I'm going to offer a VIP day, which is 4 hours. It's an intensive with me, and I can either do it on Skype or live if you're in the Atlanta area. But this is something that I'm going to be rolling out for everybody that joins, to be entered into a drawing to win the VIP day. If you can stand me for 4 whole hours, but it's a lot of fun, and we really dig in and set up those systems in your business, which is huge. Okay, so this is where you can find that if you're interested in that. If you go to my website, betsypake.com, and then you go /special VIP, that'll give you a link to actually find the details on that program on the 60 DT. But if you come back to the special VIP, it gives you a special price. So it's $100 off through that, and it also gives you that strategy session with me. So thank you so much for listening. Is there any questions or anything that I can help? Yep, I can give you the slides, Eric. I see that. Anything else? Dan, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Hey, thanks a million, Betsy. That was awesome. And I'm so glad we did this now to kind of give everybody some time to think, because I think we all think about our goals coming up the next year and how we're going to set them. And, you know, everybody has like 3 or 4 things they really want to accomplish over the next year. And simple things like writing them down, like Betsy just put us through that exercise. I've written goals down before and went and stumbled upon them a year or 2 later and went, wow, I did that. And so I remember one goal I wrote down 20-something years ago. I've got an industrial engineering degree from Georgia Tech, and 20 years ago I wrote a goal down and said, I'm going to be in sales always. And so here I am 20 years later, still in sales. So it was like a decision I had to make between those 2 things. So, but anyhow, this is where you can reach Betsy at. I think I went on your website, Betsy, and you had some great follow-up emails whenever I signed up for your newsletter, and so you guys can do that. And man, thanks for plugging in. If does anybody have any questions here that they want to ask? I don't have anything else on the chat, so I don't want to cut things off until we're ready there.
And people can always reach out to me on Facebook. Just find my personal page, friend request me, and ask questions. You know, so if someone's listening to this video later, just come find me. I'd be happy to help.
Are you on Twitter and all that stuff too? Can we follow you there?
I'm everywhere at Betsy Pake. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. I assume you're on LinkedIn and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a million, Betsy, and thanks everybody for joining us. And man, I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.